include topics such as self-harm, suicide, alcoholism. If any of these things or anything related might disturb you, please proceed with caution or click off the video now. Hazy here, and welcome back to what should be the 5th episode of the Only Rainy Days podcast. I'm your host, Who Killed Hazy. You can just call me Hazy. You know how it goes. And today, assuming that I named the title the same thing, today's topic will be staying strong. And I have some notes about it. Not a lot. I usually don't write notes down, but the notes I have is literally, it says, staying strong versus facades. And that's something I really want to focus on, because I believe that there is a very strong difference between staying strong for the sake of appearance. No, there's a difference. There's a difference between staying strong for yourself versus putting on a facade of staying strong for other people. There are certain circumstances in life where you might need to act strong simply because you don't have another option, versus putting on a facade. That way people won't see the fear and the grief and your legitimate true feelings towards the circumstance that you and a group of people are facing. I believe there's a very strong difference between the two, and I kind of want to explore that, because to be 100% honest with both myself and any person that might be listening, I think I've been jumping between the two, honestly. Yeah, that's an honest thought. I feel like I've been jumping between the two. At times, I feel like the things that I feel aren't either legitimate, or I try to downplay the way that it makes me feel. And sometimes I downplay it because I feel like if I was to give it my full attention, I will be taken away from the things that I feel like I should be focusing on, which is trying to stay strong. Or I downplay it because someone has come around me, face to face, not face to face, someone's just talking to me, and I downplay how I feel because I don't want them to necessarily worry about me, in a sense. And trying to get someone to not worry about you is still, it's dishonest in a sense. It makes 100% sense to me. I don't think that you should try to mislead everyone, but at the same time, I believe that there are people in your life that you either don't feel like you can trust, should trust, or there's just some people in your life that you don't want to give that type of information to. And I think that's a valid reasoning. It doesn't make sense to be 100% fully honest with every single person, because some people that you know are for strict reasoning. For example, during my short, quote unquote, tenure, my position that I had at Amazon, I had a couple, quote unquote, friends, people that I knew, associate, peers, whatever word you want to use, that I knew. And sometimes they would ask me like, "Oh, hi, Hazy, how are you doing?" And I would just say, another day, another dollar, or just like, "I'm doing fine. How are you doing?" And you keep it cordial with them. That's a facade, because honestly, I hated every single day that I worked at Amazon. That's just a true feeling. I didn't enjoy my time before I got there, my time when I was there, and I didn't really enjoy my time when I left. Like, it was a period of time where I was just under a constant feeling of stress and a constant feeling of, I don't want to say not belonging, because that sounds so supremacist of me, but I just didn't like any part of it. It paid well, I won't lie. The job paid well. So the only thing I enjoyed was just thinking about if there's any way I can run down the clock without actually putting in the amount of effort that is expected of me, then this has been a good day. But regardless, spending 10 to 11 hours in a building fully illuminated by fluorescent lighting. It was torture on my mental, but even despite the mental torture that I will continuously describe, regardless how many times I talk about Amazon, I think it was very helpful because the 200, 300 plus hours I spent by myself in that building is quite honestly the reason why I am able to voice my thoughts, because I grew up, and I still am to a relative extent, a person that thrives off thinking quietly. I usually I don't think out loud. And I just try to process things as quietly as I can. A lot of things that I developed during my time at Amazon, I've never even, I thought about it, but I've never actually developed at all on my own. All my thoughts stayed inside my head. All the mental dialogue stayed inside my head. Even singing, honestly. I didn't even sing that much up until I worked at Amazon, because it got to a point where I realized, like, hey, okay, you are employed to work about 10 and a half, 11 hours between 6:30 p.m. and like 5 a.m. or something into the night. And this is 4 days a week. You, at some point during that time period, if you can't keep a constant thought of questions that you want to answer, you'll run out of things to think about. And so I just kind of played around with it. So the first couple of weeks or whatever, I thought to myself. After I stopped thinking to myself, I started like, okay, what if I started to think out loud? Because this podcast that I want to do, Only Rainy Days, this is something I want to do. But if I'm going to do it, I need to be able to think out loud. This is a skill that I lack, that I need to work on. Let me start thinking out loud. So I started to talk to myself quietly. And that's a skill that I've been working on a lot lately. A scary amount, to be honest. But regardless, I've been working on it. And that's something that I only gained on Amazon. And do that too. I'm just like, okay, if I can't think of anything for some reason at this very moment, then I'm going to start singing to myself. And I started to sing to myself. It's something that, these are all things that I started to grow within myself based on my circumstances. I tried to make the best of it. And I would like to say that it worked, because I actually do have some demos that you'll literally never find. And quite honestly, you might never find, because I've basically deleted the videos, and I'll probably won't mention it ever again. Give it some time. But I recorded the first 2 episodes of this podcast, quote unquote, put it on this random YouTube channel that I have. And after like a month, I just took it down and I just hid it away, because I was like, I know I can do better. But, those are things that I wanted to work on. But, unless you were for some reason next to me in the Amazon facility, which I heavily doubt, because I worked as a order picker. So I was on, they call it PIT, Powered Industrial Truck, if the acronym hits my mind correctly. It's loud. It's not like a super loud machine, but there's like literally hundreds of them going around me. So like there will be times where you shouldn't be able to really hear what I'm saying or thinking to myself. Someone's driving it, honking their horn, turning, whatever it is. It's a very busy facility. It's literally Amazon. There's a reason why they have same day shipping available. So I took advantage of that and I decided to work on it. But you wouldn't know that. It didn't matter how close someone's vehicle was to me. I would just close my eyes or I would just stop paying attention, and I would continue to focus on what I felt like thinking about or what I felt like thinking about, whatever it was. But if someone found me and just be like, hey, Hazy, how are you doing today? Like, what's up, brother? I didn't know you came in today. I don't know your schedule like that. I tell them, We chilling, another day, another dollar, we getting through it. Let's get that money. We're doing well. How are you doing? And I would just completely avoid it. That's a facade, quite honestly. But I put the facade up because, in the simplest of sense, it's not their business to know how I'm doing. I don't want their opinion. Even though I'm sure, like, one of the friends that I made from working at the time, I'm sure he has some good things that he could give me towards how I was feeling and some of the things that I felt during my time at Amazon. But he wasn't someone that I felt like I needed to lean on, or someone I even wanted to lean on. So I decided that it's not even worth trying to tell him how I feel. I think it's just better if I just tell him that I'm doing fine and ask him. And if he decides to tell me how he's truly feeling, whether it be he's truly doing fine or he truly isn't, in which if he wasn't doing fine, I'd be 100% willing to listen. They aren't someone that I decided to want to listen to, and I made that decision prior. But I can only make that decision because I at least have other people in my life that I'm comfortable talking to. It's a very strong point that I want to make sure is very clear when it comes to trying to make this difference and trying to figure out who is worth talking to about your mental hardships and who isn't worth talking to. You need to make sure that regardless of what problem you're going through, if it's taking a significant toll on your mental well-being, you need somebody that you can talk to regardless of who it is. I grew up in a scenario where it's not like it's necessarily their fault, but I grew up not wanting to talk to my parents or even my older brother about these type of things. So I held it in until I got to a situation where I found someone else that I could talk to about it. And then that's when I started to actually unload some of the things that I felt, and we started to help me necessarily. But not everyone has that type of scenario, or some people have it even better. But the most important thing is that regardless of if it's staying strong or if it's sad necessarily, number one thing is you should only stay strong in the scenarios where it is 100% necessary. And I mean, like, your legitimate well-being is on the line based on how you react in this moment. Because you will always, or not always, I pray not always, but you might be faced and tasked with situations where the things that you are looking at are below ideal by a mile. It might even be further than a mile. But if you were to get lost in the idea that this is a terrible situation to be in, you might lose even more. And that's a time to be strong. You don't have to put up a facade necessarily. And you might not want to let everyone around you know that, like, hey, I'm struggling down to my core and I need everything that I can get to get out of it. But maybe you do, and there's no problem with tearing down facades or not putting them up in the first place. But the most important thing is there are situations where there is or there feels like there isn't that type of option. There might be that time. If you're going through, for example, at least, financial hardships would have to be the top of the example where you don't have a choice necessarily. And if you can either act like something isn't going wrong or not, that would have to take the cake on that type of scenario, quite honestly. Because if you feel like your living situation is in jeopardy, is in risk or whatever, you need to do whatever you can to get out of it, whatever it is. I wouldn't say it wouldn't matter, but there could be a situation that you feel very strongly about. if there's nothing about that situation that occurred recently or not recently that can get you out of your situation, you might have to just put it on the side burner. And that's a terrible feeling. Yes, I 100% understand it. And that's something that I've had to go through as well. But the most important thing is that you cannot allow some of the things that haunt you in the immediate moment to be the cause of things that will haunt you in the future. Because when you let it do that type of thing, you end up basically creating a domino effect for yourself, whether you are aware of it or not. And that's the big problem. That's the thing that we want to avoid at all costs. For example, let's say you lost a relative. Let's say you are a student at a school, high school, college, wherever you might be, or you're just trying to take in something new, a new position at a job, whatever. And a month, 2 months in, or around that time where it becomes crunch time. So if you are in high school or middle school, whatever it might be, you're like the end of your time at that school. So for middle school, it might be like 7th, 8th grade. If you're in high school, it might be junior, senior year. And same for college. There might be a point, like let's say around finals. So depends on the season, of course. But it might be like, okay, I need to at least secure this grade in the class. I need to secure this GPA overall or whatever. But at the same time, there's something that's happening on the sidelines that's, I guess, prohibiting you from reaching your full potential, reaching your greatness, because it is a situation that hurts. It hurts to your core. It makes you feel terrible. It is something that legitimately feels like I can't perform at the same level I was before this event happened, because it is just very strong to me. And I completely understand that type of feeling. I lost my grandma, the closest grandma I have, I lost her in second semester of my junior year. I don't think it was around finals. I can't remember the date properly. I do have it written down for this type of reason, but I remember it hurt me because I loved her. She was the one grandma I got to grow close to because I saw her every Christmas, and she didn't die when I was about 7 years old. I lost her when I was 16. But even if it happened around a time that I needed to really focus, such as finals, you have to just do whatever it takes. If the world won't bend to what's destroying you, then you have to bend to the world. And that's just the sad reality of it. So even if I lost a family member during my finals, if I can't secure some type of extension, rescheduling, whatever it might be during that time, I might have to legitimately just put my feelings aside for a second. And it might not be a facade. It's not really a facade at that point. If that's just what it is, then that's just what it is. The whole idea of staying strong versus a facade is necessarily, who are you doing it for? Why are you deciding to act like something isn't wrong? Are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it for your own self-image? If it's for your self-image, that's a facade that you have for someone else. You want them to look at you and be like, okay, this person that I'm staring at right now is someone that is doing well. They just have it figured out. Nothing's going wrong. When you're staying strong means that you are going to do your absolute best to proceed, regardless of the circumstances that you have to face ahead of yourself. And it's a dangerous road, because if you stay strong for too long, it becomes a snowball instead. If you decide to continuously push off the feelings that you feel, it will catch up to you. And I can tell you from experience that that is a true statement. Your feelings will catch up to you. Doesn't matter how far you run, how long you run, and anything like that. At some point, it will manifest itself into your life, whether it just be pure grief or any other type of feeling that you have, whether it be immense sadness or immense anger, because sadness and anger are very close to depression and everything around it. They are, if it's not, there are three primary feelings that you can have in this world. It's happy, sad, and angry. Something that makes you feel bad inside will never make you feel happy. So it's always going to be in between sad and angry. Whichever one that it takes, that is the world that makes you feel that way, necessarily. You can control it a little bit, but there's no good or bad in that scenario. You can feel extra sad, which means that you internalize it, which means that you'll be worse off as a person because you don't feel well. Or you can internalize it as anger. But when you are someone that is angry all the time, you turn into a worse version of yourself regardless. Being sad all the time is a different feeling. You destroy yourself. But when you're angry, you remold yourself. You end up becoming someone that you don't want to be, especially if you have an idea of someone that you don't want to be in your life. When you turn angry all the time, especially from trying to run from these scenarios and these problems that you face on a daily basis, it'll be terrible, for lack of words, because you'll be short-tempered with the people around you. You'll end up just blowing up, but you won't blow up enough to actually get the feelings that you feel off your chest. You'll blow up just enough to destroy bridges, but not enough to feel better about yourself. And when you blow up bridges without legitimate improvement, you'll be angry with yourself anyway. Which means that it's a circular thought process, because being angry at that point, if you hit that point of blowing with other people, you'll get angry just to get angry. And because you're angry, you'll be more angry. And what can you do at that point? I mean, you can't do anything. Which, I'm going to cut that point off, honestly. So what do? Should you believe in the human spirit, and should you try to stay strong, or should you continuously put up facades? If I had to put an answer on it, I believe you should only put on a strong persona when you believe that you absolutely have no other choice. And you should only put on facades with people that you do not want to give an inward look into your life to. If it's just a colleague, a peer, a classmate, whatever, you shouldn't tell them like, oh, by the way, I feel this way, like, oh, I'm losing my mind. No, that's not their business. But in the same sense, to keep it 100% with yourself, you shouldn't tell yourself that you feel this way unless you absolutely need to. If you can deal with how you feel and still proceed, go for it. But if you're hitting a point where you're losing your mind, or not even just losing your mind, but it's just like, I'm losing my mind and I have something to do, you might have to just save face, because dealing with mental stress and dealing with mental trauma at the same time with dealing with something that might progress yourself past how you feel, you might lose the opportunity. If you're doing bad in school and something else is happening, you might have to just temporarily ignore how you feel about other things that are going, just to try to get yourself through school, because getting yourself through school might get you into a situation, a placing, footing where you can actually start to breathe. Even if it's just graduating or just getting the year done, just get the year done. When you get the year done, you still have some months where then you can process what you're going through. But if you try to do it all at the same time, you might ruin yourself forever. And ruining yourself forever is something that you should avoid at every period of time, because when you're ruined, the only person that you can really count on in this world is yourself. If you don't have yourself, you have literally nothing. You have nothing. It doesn't matter how strong your support system is or anything. You can have the world's strongest support system. The only person that's really going to make decisions and get through to your own deep psyche is yourself. You make the decision to intake other people's information. If they want to give you advice or anything like that, you make the final decision of if I'm going to listen to it or if I'm going to disregard it and just be like, this person's just saying this because they want me to feel good, or they're just saying this but they don't know what they're talking about, even though they might know what they're talking about. You make all the final decisions. So number one priority in your life should be yourself, but you just have to be very, very careful with the way that you proceed, because if you take the wrong step, if you stay strong when you shouldn't stay strong, when you throw up a facade in front of people that you shouldn't throw a facade in front of, you might do irreversible damage. Stay strong when you don't feel like staying strong. You'll just delay it until you might not feel like you have that opportunity anymore. You throw up a facade in front of the wrong person, they might not trust you anymore. They might see through your facade even, and calling them out, if you stay strong on that, it'll even hurt even more. If someone asks you legitimately, they see through your facade and ask you how you're doing, you decide to lie again, they might just never ask, and that might be the opportunity that you needed to try to get yourself out of the hole that you feel like you're stuck in. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous, and I hope, because it's very tricky. It's very tricky to work around these type of things. So the most important thing you can do is try to assess your situation properly and determine, do I need to worry on anyone else or just strictly myself? And if I worry strictly on myself, do I have the time and the liberty to focus on the things that are bothering me, or do I need to just close my mind and work through what's going on right now? And number one thing that I would always recommend, regardless of how you feel, if you get to that type of situation, please talk to a licensed therapist, or counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, any person that will listen to how you feel, because they can help you break down how you feel and maybe help you reach closer or reach these decisions even faster. I will 100% always basically recommend a therapist or a psychiatrist or a counselor, anyone that you can get in contact with, because talking about these type of things is very important to self-progression and making sure that you're here in life, because the most important thing that you can do in this life is legitimately be here. People want you to be here. That's just the truth. It might not feel like it at times. You might not even know exactly who it is. Someone always wants you to be here in this life. And it's not to say that you owe them necessarily, but I feel like you should always do your best to be here, regardless of how you feel. And I think that's really about it. Do your best, because I know that you can. And even if the most important thing you can do is, even if you can't do your best, is to stand still. Let's never move backwards, which is why I won't talk about any way that you can move backwards. Never move backwards. Act like you can stay strong, put up a facade, but never move backwards, because everything else is just a pause. And as long as you can do that, you'll know how to stay strong with yourself. And as long as you can stay strong, we continuously move forward in our lives. As long as we continuously move forward, doesn't matter how long it takes. I watched my mom, I watched my parents, basically, both of them, grow their dream businesses, their dream jobs, passions, everything that you could potentially imagine. I watched them all achieve it, all in their later years, 30 plus, after having 2 kids that they dedicated their life to trying to figure out how to create better circumstances than what they had for each other. There's no such thing as an end unless you let it. We can continuously move forward and progress, and we can do better. But the first thing that it takes, sometimes at least, to continuously move forward, because will always be a principle to yourself regardless of how it is. The number one thing that you have to remember is how to stay strong.